Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the OBR Prospect Spotlight here on the OBR Streaming Network. My name is Jacob. You can find me on X at Roaches13, and I'm here to break down. We took a week off last week, and coming back this week, we're going to talk about my top 3 defensive tackles in this class. Something I wrote up for the OBR last week. Just had some stuff, wasn't able to jump on here. So I think the Browns still kind of got a problem there, especially at run defense, where they need to look to add potentially more at the defensive tackle position. I don't think it's a crazy great class, but I don't think it's a bad class either. It's headlined, by Mason Graham, who I think is a top 5 talent in this draft, and the Browns would have to probably take him there with their top pick if they want to get him. But I think there's some good quality players that they could plug in. And for me, it starts at number 3 with Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Some of the numbers on Tyleik: 3 games played so far this year, 99 snaps. He's dealt with a little bit of an injury to begin this year, so some of his numbers are not quite where you kind of expected him. He has a 91.8 run defense grade from PFF. That's where he makes his living, man. He is an elite run stuffer already. He does everything right that the Browns don't, outside Donovan Tomlinson, do very consistently in the middle as run defenders. He has 2 sacks on the year as well, 6'3", 327 pounds. He's just so strong and powerful at the point of attack in run defense. You're not moving Tyleik Williams. You may be able to lock him up, especially with double teams, and keep him where he's at, but you're not pushing him out of the way to create running lanes. It's not happening. He does a fantastic job eating those those double teams and those blocks and kind of opening things up for his linebackers behind him to do the sexy part, to get the tackles and the tackles for loss and stuff. A lot of what Tyleik Williams does not show up in the stat sheet. And as a result, it's not super flashy, super glamorous, but if you took him on day 2 of the draft, I think you'd be in a really good spot for the next decade. At minimum, I think he's going to be an average to above average run defender. I think he's elite at it at the college level. We'll see if it, kind of translates. I think he has a really high football IQ. You can tell when Tyleik's out there that he understands what is happening to him, the type of protection. He sees and diagnoses run play and where the running back's going to go very quickly, which I think helps him to be that way. He's got great contact balance. It doesn't matter. You try to get him and you're not going to knock him over. He's not going to find himself on the ground very often. Obviously it happens. You can't say never with those sorts of things, but his contact balance and his sturdy, strong lower half, it's just really hard to take advantage of him. And he's really raw as a pass rusher. And that's one thing that I think this year that's kind of been a little bit disappointing, in the sense that the injury that's limited him and his ability to kind of go out there and grow as a pass rusher, because he's only played 100 snaps halfway through the college season, missed half of the games. And so 99 snaps at this point. And that's something that you just kind of hope that he develops. He just doesn't have much of a pass rush plan, but he's a really good athlete and he's really powerful. Sometimes he will bull rush and put them back in the quarterback's lap and help create some pressure and some things like that. And he's got a couple of sacks, so he knows how to get home. It's just not really a strength of his game. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, we're going to need to develop him a little bit, but we can use him right away as a rookie, as a run defender on these early downs, to have some success, and then potentially just, hope he develops along the way there. He's got, his pad level is very inconsistent. I think that's the biggest issue as a pass rusher. Sometimes he'll go straight up. He's got really heavy, violent hands, does a great job. Again, comes back to the run defense, just great job of knocking opposing offensive linemen's hands and arms off of him so that they cannot control him, get into his base, move him where they want to go. It's just really hard for them to do that. But in the end, Tyleik Williams, you're taking him because you want to shore up your run defense and you want the outside chance that he develops into a good pass rusher. I think he will always be a good to great run defender at the next level. It's just all about that. So for me, he's somewhere in the day 2 conversation, but I think he would match really well with what the Browns don't have going into next year. Transitioning over to number 2, For me, it's Deone Walker, the Kentucky product. There's some really fun and interesting things about him, and his numbers are down this year. So I can understand why some people don't really want to put him up here at number 2 or number 3 in this class, just because he's kind of had a little bit of a fall off. But I watch his tape, and I don't think it's because he's gotten worse, but I just don't think the production has been there. It's just some not in the right spot at the right time in a lot of situations, and just kind of not being able to finish some of these plays, which is a little bit concerning, but you can still see the things that you love about him. So he's played 5 games so far. He's at 6'6", 350 pounds. But the thing is, he's a great pass rusher and just an okay run defender. It's crazy at that size in power. He has 2 sacks this year, a 74.4 pass rush grade from PFF. Last year he had 8 sacks. They play him all over the field, which is crazy to me. At 350 pounds, they've even had him as an off-ball linebacker, stand-up rusher, and he's been effective in those positions. Like, he had 51 quarterback pressures in 2023 at 350 pounds at 6'6". It's, you look at this guy and you go, okay, this is a physical freak. This is a dude that has everything I can't coach. If I can figure out how to take advantage of that talent and develop him, there's a lot of really awesome skill sets in there for him. He's such a great athlete at that size, and he's so explosive off the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he will get in there, he'll shoot the gap at 350 pounds, and you're gonna, how did he even get through there at that size? Well, it's just the kind of athlete and explosive player that he is, that, you know, you look at him and you're like, oh, this guy's gonna he's gonna bull rush me. He's got a pretty good diverse route pass rush plan, to some stack and shed, some rips, a swim move. Like, he's relatively pretty well developed for a guy that probably for most of his life they thought he was going to be just a great run defender, and he just hasn't really materialized into that. But he's done a much better job as a pass rusher. I think he's got good hands and great lateral movement skills. Another guy that's just wildly inconsistent with his pad level, and at 6'6", 350. I understand that, but if you can get him, his hand technique is already good. If you can get it to the next level where he can play with leverage and get under the shoulder pads a little bit better as a run defender, he's got the power, the strength, the athleticism. You know, he's got long arms. So he can be that guy to be a good run defender. He's not really asked to do that a lot at Kentucky, as much as you would think. I think the defensive scheme kind of has something to do with his lack of production, but I think he can be that player. You can't teach the size. Here's the thing that really gets to me. No, this was before last week's game. So this was through 4 games before this stat here. I was looking it up. So he's nearly 350 pounds. He was 3rd on the defense with 212 snaps played out of 254 through 4 games. So he was playing 83% of the snaps at 350 pounds. Yeah, I can work with that. I can work with the guy that has the work ethic and the motor and the conditioning at that size to be on the field all the time. I think if you could just work on his leverage, you can work on some of those things at the point of attack and his pad level, and figure out help him to better anchor defensive lines as a pass rusher, or not as a pass rusher, because I think he's a great pass rusher, but as a run defender, and you can kind of grow and develop some of that aspect of his game. I think you're really cooking with something here, because he's got all the tools. He's a great athlete. He's very explosive. And I just think he could be a lot of fun. Like, he's probably a 1st rounder, probably a 2nd rounder. So I know some of these guys the Browns are probably not necessarily going to go for, but they could. Depends on how free agency goes and who they retain, who they move on from. But Deone Walker is number 2 for me on that list. I think most people, you're going to go across the board talking about defensive tackles, and the conversation a lot of times is going to start and end with Mason Graham from Michigan. God, Mason Graham from Michigan is absolutely fantastic. He is the complete and total package. I talked about these past 2 guys, Walker being a guy that's more of a pass rusher that needs to develop as a run defender, Tyleik being the other way around. Mason Graham's the total package. He is going to do everything. He's going to do everything well. So through 6 games with Michigan, a 90.6 run defense grade, but adds 13 pressures, 5 sacks, 6'3", 320 pounds. He just demands double teams in every aspect of the game. Like, you turn on his tape, and one thing I really wanted to see was him going against that high-powered Texas offense. And the reason I think they were so successful against Michigan was they understood that run snaps, pass snaps, any kind of offensive snap, we're putting 2 guys on Mason Graham. And some of the guys around him, as they got tired and as the defense was out there a ton against Texas, they kind of wore down. But they identified, we have got to throw everything at Mason Graham, and we've got to try to limit him. And they did, and that led to a lot of the success they had in that win. At the beginning of the year, he's going to do all of the dirty work. Like Mason Graham is going to do all of the dirty work, let his teammates get the stats and the numbers and all those sexy things that show up in stat sheets. But you know who, when you turn that tape on, you know the reason that those other defensive linemen and linebackers are getting some easy opportunities, and that's because of all the attention that Mason Graham grabs. He's looking at him as an elite bull rusher power kind of guy. He's an immovable object. That's what I wrote down in my notes. I'm going to keep referencing my notes as I go through this, but that's one thing that I bolded and highlighted and underlined. He's an immovable object. He's such a great run defender, but he's going to do those things as a pass rusher too. He's got a quick first step in that swim move. If you let him get inside on you and he hits that swim move, it's over as a pass rusher. He is getting into the backfield. He does that as a run defender too. But a lot of times as a run defender, you'll see in a lot of his tape that they understand who he is there. They will double team him. He's got a pretty diverse bag of pass rush moves. You'll see him double hand swipe people away, a quick rip, a push pull, long arm over, swim, spin. I mean, he's got a diverse bag. He's not like a super freaky athlete. He's an above average athlete. He's a really good athlete. He's not quite like Aaron Donald, but who is like Aaron Donald? But if you're going into this, he's a top 5 player in my mind. I think the Browns would have to be picking in the top 10 and use their first pick to get a Mason Graham. But this is the kind of guy that you grab and you throw him in the middle of that defense, knowing for the next decade you have a 3-down player that will make everybody around him better. He will garner so much attention in the run game, and he will be so disruptive as a pass rusher. He's just how I saw. I can't remember who it was. I'm trying to remember on Twitter. I saw somebody posting some pictures, like some clips of Mason Graham. They said, however high you are on Mason Graham to this point, you need to be higher. Okay. And I think I was getting ready to watch my film study. Oh, Ryan Roberts. It was Ryan Roberts, good draft guy on Twitter, and Rise and Draft. And I was I've been working on Walker and Williams and working on some of this defensive tackle tape. When I seen that, I'm like, okay, but I'm like pretty high. And then you turn it on, you're just like, yeah, this is the dude. This is the real deal. He does every aspect that you need a defensive tackle to do, and you put him in the middle, and you don't worry about that position. He's just a fantastic player. So that's it for this week's OBR prospect spotlight, going over my top 3 defensive tackles. We'll be back next week, probably wide receivers, working on an article for the OBR for that tonight. So hopefully we'll get that out to you guys in good times. Thank you guys so much. If you're here on the YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up. It helps us out a ton. We appreciate you guys so very much. Until next time, go Browns.